Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a GS430 from a 2000 to 2005. That makes it the 5-speed variant. And this is going into an IS200 plug and play with a manual gearbox. So, let's do this. Right, so as I said, this is going to be a GS430 from a 2000-2005 model vehicle. It's a 3UZ VVT-i with the 5-speed automatic gearbox, but in this case, it's been adapted to be plug and play into an IS200 using a manual gearbox, in this case, a J160 from the IS200. So, first thing we want to do is obviously show you guys what we go through in terms of making these harnesses. So obviously we strip them all down completely. We build all the new wires that are required, remove everything that's not required, and put it all back together. So let's cut to look at those photos. We'll be back in a second. Right, so you can see exactly what we go through. At the end, we actually show the photos of what we received from the customer and then what we end up with when it's completed. So if you want to go ahead and watch those when it gets to the end of the video, you'll see exactly how it all looks. Right, so what we're going to be doing today is what we do every single time. First of all, we're going to go through the entire layout of the harness. We're going to show you where everything goes, where it connects to, and all the stuff that we've added in. And then we'll go on to the testing, and that'll be with the ignition on and obviously with the engine running as well. So let's start right here at the ECU box. So as you'll see here, this is the 3UZ ECU. Now, if you have an IS200, obviously it's not going to fit directly into the ECU box. So there are two ways to remedy that. One is you can remove these 4 screws, you can slide the ECU out, you can grind this lip off, okay? It's important that you do remove the ECU because grinding the lip off is going to generate a lot of heat, so you don't want to do any damage to the PCB in there, so please do remove that before you go ahead and grind it. Second option is you can obviously just get an IS300 ECU box, because the IS300 in Europe, all the versions that we had this wedge-shaped ECU. So remember, you guys, in the US, you had a 2000 to 2001 that had like a rectangular ECU, same as the GS300 of that early vintage. So that would be similar to an IS200 in the rectangular shape. So for you US guys, it's the 2001 onwards, or sort of 2002 onwards, that had these wedge-shaped ECUs for the IS300. Right, so let's focus on what we have connecting here. We've got 1, 2, 3 connectors there. We've got 2 connectors there. Nice and simple. They're all different, so you can't plug the wrong one into the wrong place. Super easy. Coming over here, we then have our resin, or our sort of what I call a patch section. So this plugs into the existing IS200 plugs that are already in your car. These should remain behind when you remove your engine harness. Okay. Next up is going to be the body plug. So we've got this one over here, which in this case is white because we've reused the GS430 one, but that used to be a gray one in your IS200. We've then got this one over here, which again we've reused from that one, and that is going to be originally a blue one. In this case, it's obviously sort of off-white. And over here we have the black one. Now, do bear in mind, all 3 of these plugs are completely different, so you cannot plug them in the wrong place. So you have absolutely nothing to worry about when it comes to fitting in your vehicle. And like I said, at the end, we've got some really nice photos of it being complete inside an ECU box that we have for building purposes. So you'll see exactly how everything should go. Extra things that are going to be inside the ECU box. Number 1 is going to be the tacho converter. So remember, now that we remap the ECUs, on top of all the other stuff we do, obviously we change the MPX data to work with the IS200/300. So what we need to do still is we do need to alter the rev counter signal, because this ECU is giving out a 4-cylinder signal and we need a 6-cylinder signal. So this is how we convert it. I do set it up over here, but it is adjustable if you want to make changes. You literally just pop the back cover off over there. You'll see a little blue pot resistor in there, and you can literally use a small screwdriver and you can adjust it ever so slightly if you feel it's not super accurate. I do try and get it as accurate as I can here using the diagnostic machine, but it is adjustable if you guys want to. Okay. Next up is going to be our STP relay, or our brake switch relay. So remember, on the IS200s, instead of using the 4-brake brake switch like the autos did, they only had a 2-wire brake switch. The ECU requires a 4-wire brake switch, so it needs to know when the brakes are both pressed and not pressed, so we take care of that with a relay. So all of this is designed to sort of tuck away inside here. Next up is going to be our 2 other little junction plugs. These are just standard on a GS430. Okay, and they can just tuck away underneath there as well, no problem at all. So that's everything inside the ECU box. Super nice, super simple. Okay, moving along, we then have the grommet, which obviously would normally go in there if your engine was a lot lower than what ours is over here. Moving along the grommet, we're then going to end up at the first piece of plastic, and this is bolted down in 2 places, just over here and over here. So again, super nice and simple, nothing major to worry about there. In the plastic, the first section that breaks out is going to be this little section over here, and that is going to go to injector 1 and coil 1. Okay, so remember, when you're looking at the engine, you're always looking at it from the driver's perspective. This is the left bank, and it has all the odd numbers, so you've got 1, 3, 5, and 7. The other side is the right bank, and it has all the even numbers, so it's got 2, 4, 6, and 8. Okay, I'll go through everything as I go along, but I thought I'd just give you an overview in the beginning here. Right, first breakout, injector 1 and coil 1, super simple. Then the plastic goes along there. You have another breakout pointing towards the front of the engine. That has the oil control valve plug, so that goes in there. This is the oil control valve for the VVT-i. It then has the TPS connector for the drive-by-wire throttle, so that goes over there. It then moves along down here, breaks out about here, and goes off to the front cam sensor. So this is one of 3 cam sensors. Popping on along here, and you'll see there's actually mounting points there and there. Excuse my clips, they're just ones to easily take harnesses off and on again, but you should have some mounting clips there on your cover that you can use to mount the harness down. But as it comes out there, it breaks out into 3 sections. First of all is the AC plug. Okay, obviously I haven't got an AC compressor fitted on this engine, but this is where your AC compressor would plug into. So on these systems, we do make the AC work, so it works as long as the system is plumbed in correctly and the pressure is okay. The other section that breaks out there is going to be this section down here. Now, in this case, I'm using an LS430 engine, so you can see my oil filter housing is pointing forwards, not backwards like the GS430 with the front sump would be. But so this would normally be facing in the opposite direction there. So normally you could come through here, down here, pop out the back and go into the oil pressure switch over there. Okay. The other section that breaks out, and again, goes straight down through there. You can actually see it over there where my finger is. Pops down through there and goes over to the crank sensor. Okay, all these plugs are different, so you can't plug them in the wrong place, but yeah, just showing you exactly where everything goes. Okay, so remember, your oil pressure switch is going to be there and not here on a GS430, and that applies to pretty much every IS200 300 swap, because you guys need the front sump. So even if you end up with an LS430 engine, you need to swap this sump out for either GS430, SC430. Remember, the GS430 only up until 2005. After 2006, they used a mid sump like this. SC430 actually all the way to 2010, they had the front sump on, so that's always a good one to look for that one. And obviously you can use the 3UZ-FE VVT-i LS400, also a front sump, and you can get the oil filter and housing from one of those. Okay, right, so that's all of this down here. Super nice and simple. So let's move back over to our plastic section over here. It goes down, turns around the corner here, and I'm just going to move over here. So you'll see over here, it just has a little section where it's uncovered from there, and then we end up at our next piece of plastic that holds it all together. 2 mounting points there and there, super nice and simple. Now this one is really nice and easy because it basically dictates where everything goes on where it comes out, okay? So your first section that comes out over here is going to have injector 3 and coil 3. It's also going to have the cam sensor for the left bank inlet. So remember, on these engines, the VVT-i is only on the inlet cams, not on the exhaust cams. That comes later with the more modern engines like the UR and the GR. But yeah, so you're only required to know what's happening with the inlet cam. So this is your second cam sensor. We'll get to the other one on the other side in a minute. Moving along there, it's going to break out over here. And again, this one, you have 3 sections as well. You're going to have injector 5 and coil 5. And then lastly, we have our noise filter connector. So you should have a noise filter, which is bolted to your inlet manifold here, and that'll plug directly into that. So remember, these are Noise filters, basically a capacitor. It's designed to absorb any sort of electrical noise, probably specifically from things like the ignition system and the injectors that will obviously create noise as they pulsate. Okay. It's also obviously used to reduce the electrical noise, so sometimes you can get some hissing through your radio. These things tend to help with that. One thing I would say is obviously these are adapted harnesses. That's the reason why we leave these in. When we rebuild new harnesses, you'll see we don't add these in. And that's mainly because we do a full concentric twist. So when you twist a harness like that, you actually eliminate the noise, because the point of twisting is to make sure that anything that happens with one wire happens to the other. So effectively, it's like having two noises coming from either side of a room, and the dead center, you're going to have absolutely no noise whatsoever. Those sound waves are going to cancel each other out. Same thing happens when you have a concentrically twisted harness. So you won't tend to find these on concentrically twisted harnesses. You'll tend to find these on harnesses that are not twisted, because you don't have that system where obviously, because you twist all together, any sort of noise in that gets cancelled out. Right, so moving along to the last section over here that breaks out, and that is going to go to injector 7 and coil 7. Nice, super simple. So as I said, this basically dictates where they go. So you're not going to be able to put this one over here or over here, and vice versa. Can't put that one over there, etc., etc. So it's very, very easy. Where they come out here is going to dictate where they plug into. All right. At the end of the plastic, we then come down and we end up at the piece of plastic at the back over here. Okay. Now this has only two mounting points in the case of a 3UZ. One is down there. See if I can get it to focus. So one is down there with my fingers pointing over there, and the other one is over there with my fingers pointing over there. So that's the only two mounting points. Really nice, super simple. Moving along down here, and we're going to get to the section that would have had the automatic gearbox section coming out. Obviously, that's a much changed now because we've changed it to a manual. So out of the back here, we're just going to have an earth strap with a ring terminal on, and that's going to go in here. Remember, that is a M6 bolt. On your 3UZ, you're not going to have either of these two with the bolt in. So don't stress about that. You should only have that bolt left over from when you took the harness off, and that is where that earth ring terminal goes. Also coming out here, if we go down to over there, you can see we've got our Lambda sensor. Let's see if I can get it to focus down there. Let me see if I can move this over here. Just underneath there. Oh, no. There it is over there, my finger is over there. Now, do bear in mind that there is a shield that goes between the exhaust and the block, and that is protecting that connector from the exhaust. So please, guys, make sure that you do put that on. If you don't put that on and you end up touching the exhaust with the connector, well, you're gonna have a very bad time. There's a power and a ground in there. If the connector melts and they touch each other, you're gonna pop that fuse, which is then gonna cause your MAF, your ACIS, and your oxygen sensors to all fail at the same time. Okay, so please, guys, make sure that you do have that shield in there or some sort of protection to stop that connector touching the exhaust and melting. Right, also coming out there, we then have our gearbox plug. Okay, so again, this is to accommodate both a reverse and a speed sensor. In this particular case, the customer is actually using a BMW gearbox. So I do apologize in the beginning, I said J160, that's not right. He's using a BMW gearbox, so we've got an EV1 style connector with just the reverse switch on here, okay? Now that is because the BMW gearbox does not have a speed sensor in it. On BMWs, they used to take the speed from the diff. So in this case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to end up supplying a wire for the customer to go from the ABS ECU to the cluster. And that means that he's going to be able to get his speed signal from his ABS ECU. And that's the way that the Auto's IS200s did it, as well as the Auto IS300s. So again, really simple, straightforward, only one wire to connect. I've got a full instruction pack to give to the customer, and that'll then sort out his speedo. So no major concerns there. Okay. So that is this side over here. The last thing I'm going to go through over here is going to be the little pop-out section underneath here. You'll see that one then goes to this plug at the back of the piece here. This is your starter motor and your two knock sensors. And you also have your main starter cable, which goes literally directly to your battery positive. So remember, this is going to be a right-hand drive vehicle. So his battery is going to be over here, and he's going to take that directly to there. Okay. What I am going to do as well is I'm going to show you what it looks like underneath there. So you'll see it goes down in this cover here and then goes straight underneath. And you can see that whole section there where it goes to the two knock sensors and the starter motor and all that. So that's the overall picture. Then you'll see it goes directly to the starter motor. So you'll see that little black plug that's on the screen now. So you'll see that plugs directly into there. And then it branches off, and then obviously it goes to the knock sensors, with the white knock sensor being on the bank 1 or knock 1. And then on the other side, you've got the gray plug, and that is knock 2, because that is the right bank, which is called bank 2 as well. So that's knock 2 and knock 1. So remember, white one is knock 1, gray one is knock 2. Okay, right, so coming back to this now, I'm going to pop over the other side, and let's carry on over there. So let's pop around here. Right, so moving along the piece of plastic over here, we then end up with another little section that breaks out over here. Really nice and simple. It's just another earth strap, again, with just the M6 bolt. You guys won't have this bolt in your 3UZ, okay? Just the M6 over there, all right? Also coming out there is then going to be our accelerator pedal connector, okay? So that is a connector that does disconnect, and it goes along here. It is all labeled, and in this case, the customer is going to be using an IS220, IS350, IS250 accelerator pedal. So we've made him the correct little sub harness for that. So that would then obviously make its way through where the original accelerator cable went, and you fit the pedal inside the car, and you just plug it in. And if you needed to remove the engine, you obviously can just unplug that there. And same goes for the gearbox. If you want to remove the engine without the gearbox, you can then obviously unplug that, and it would remove the reverse switch from there. Okay, right, so that's the little section that pops out over there, nice and simple. So moving along to here, and then we have the end of the plastic, and the first thing that comes out is going to be injector 8 and coil 8. So remember, 8, 6, 4, and 2 on this side. Moving along to there, we have another breakout over here, and that's going to go to our ACIS system, or acoustic control induction system. Now, in the description below, I'm going to have a ton of videos for you guys to watch. One of them is explaining how this system works. I've done a complete video where I've pulled the entire intake apart to show you exactly what's going on inside. So I do recommend you go watch that, and you'll see exactly why it is an incredibly important system, and that it is really good to make sure that it does work, okay? Now, in the testing, I'm gonna show you exactly what happens to determine whether the ACIS system works, but if you wanna test it before you put the inlet manifold back on, you can see in this plug over here, we've got a thick white one and a small blue with a white tracer. Thick white is 12 volts, blue with the white is ground. So in this particular case, if you were looking at your one, the black is 12 volts, the white is ground. You can supply that with the inlet manifold off on the ground, and you can make sure that little vacuum solenoid valve does click when you provide that with 12 volts and ground. If it doesn't click, now's the time to change it, because you've already got the intake manifold off, because you've had to put that whole harness underneath back with the knock sensors on. So might as well make sure it's correct now, and not once you've put everything back together, everything is in the car, and it becomes an absolute pain to do. Okay, right, so that's over there. And so I said ACIS, and you've got injector 6 and coil 6 over there, right? Then the harness moves along there, and then we have the breakout for the cam sensor for the right bank. So this is the same as the one on the other side, which we already went through over there. It also comes out to injector 4 and coil 4, and also a noise filter, which again is screwed onto your inlet manifold over here, which you then plug directly into. Okay. Moving along here, you'll see, just for illustration, I've put a P-clamp on there. You'll see there's actually 2 holes there, so you could put another P-clamp there to hold the harness in place, make it look all nice. But the harness runs through there and breaks out at the front over here, and it goes to injector 2. So you can see that behind there. Goes to coil 2. It also goes to your coolant temperature sensor. You guys can ignore this on your engine. You're just going to have a blanking bolt in there. I use this for when I need to get a temperature signal on a 3 or a 1UZ VVT-i. But yeah, so just the 2-wire coolant temp sensor you need to plug in. And then we're going to have the oil control valve for the right bank over here. So that's going to plug in directly over there. And then lastly, if you follow down here, you're going to see we then have the plug for the drive-by-wire motor. Okay, so remember, this is fully drive-by-wire. There's no cables, accelerator cables at all to go with this engine. Right. Lastly, coming out of here is going to be your mass airflow sensor, okay? Now, do remember, guys, that there are differences between the LS430 2000-2003 and the GS430 and the SC430. The GS430 and the SC430, their plugs actually angle up at about 45 degrees. So this is actually an airflow meter for an LS430. Now, although the wiring is the same, they are slightly different. So please make sure you guys do get the correct mass airflow sensor for your particular setup. And as I always say, the easiest way to do that is to take your ECU part number, okay, which is a 10-digit number made up of 5 dash and then 5 numbers. Put that into Toyota DIY, then move over to the airbox section which will then give you the information on the mass airflow sensor. Then you have the part number and you've made sure it's correct for your ECU, and you can go ahead and order that part if you don't have it. Okay. Right, so that's that section over there, and then you can see the harness runs down along here, and it's just going to break out here by the alternator into 3 sections, one being the 3-pin alternator plug over there. The other one is going to be the oil level sensor plug. So remember, with the front sump, your oil level sensor sits here. So that's why this plug is over here. And then lastly, your Lambda plug for the right bank, okay? Now, what you'll notice is the Lambda plug for the right bank has a very long cord, and the other one for the other side has a short harness section. So there are wiring differences between these two sensors, guys. So please make sure that when you are ordering them, and I do put the part numbers down below for you. I give you the Toyota part numbers and the Denso part numbers if you want to buy a quality part, because basically they're made by Denso, so you may as well just buy the Denso part rather than buying from Toyota. A lot cheaper, but you're still getting the OEM quality with those ones, okay? But do remember, they are different wiring. You can't buy one of these long ones and stick it on the other side there. That is not going to work. You have to make sure you get the short one for the left bank and the long one for the right bank. And this is for the 3UZ, guys. 1UZ VVT-i, this plug over here is actually much longer and it reaches all the way to the back. And the 1UZ VVT-i uses both short ones that are the same part number, okay? So please make sure you get the correct one, all right? And also with the alternators, just a little fact as well, even the 4-pin ones from the later model ones that can bolt on here use the same terminals and grommets, just in a different 4-pin connector. So as long as you get a GS or an LS430, the 3UZ 6-speed models, and you have one of those with the 4-pin plugs, they still only use the 3 wires. So you could technically de-pin this and pin in the 4-pin one, and you don't need to change anything or cut anything, just de-pin and re-pin with the 4-pin plug. But do be careful, because you do get these ECUs with the Japanese Crown models, and they actually use all 4 wires, and it's actually controlled via the ECU. So you can't use those with a GS or a LS430 5-speed harness, okay? Only the LS and the GS430 6-speed alternators are interchangeable, okay? So just remember, the reason I say that is because the SC430 actually kept the same 3-pin oval plug all the way to 2010. So they didn't change to a 4-pin plug even in 2005, 2006 when they swapped over to the 6-speed. They kept the same alternator plug. Don't ask me why. You have to go to Japan and ask them why. Right, okay. But that is the layout of the harness, okay? So again, it's really nice and simple. It just makes a U shape around the engine so you can drop the harness on, bolt the plastics down, and then start connecting everything, okay? Now then, it is plug and play. So obviously, in terms of ECU box, you're just going to plug everything and it's going to work. The only other things you have to connect are obviously the main starter cable, which goes directly to the positive of the battery. And the second one is the alternator cable, okay? So this is the one that bolts onto the alternator here. So you can see that over there. That one you can see at the moment is running down underneath. So you just need to get yourself a decently sized cable. And that will then run, and that will bolt down into here. Not to your battery positive, it bolts down into here. And you have 120 amp fuse in there. So if you do get an alternator that uses more than 120 amps, let's say you get a later one, maybe 140 amps, you can obviously change this 120 to a 140 amp fuse. No problem at all. But I would always advise to connect that there. Reason being, it's for safety. You've got a long cable that's running underneath the engine. If anything happens, that's more likely to either rub away, get caught, touch onto the chassis, completely short, and then you've got a very thick cable that's going to get very hot very quickly. So always connect it to here, because you have that safety. If anything happens, that the fuse will just pop and it'll stop supplying 12 volts to the alternator, and it will stop that wire probably setting on fire. So again, please guys, there and not onto the positive of the battery. But those are the positives you need to connect. The other one is just the grounds. So do remember, you've got your ground cable and your standard IS200 that runs from the battery negative underneath, gets bolted to the chassis, and then goes down along there, and then you can bolt it to the block. Okay, so that's your main earth. Okay, so that should be sufficient for the block there for the starter motor. And what I sometimes advise you guys to do is on the back here, there was a little bracket holding the vacuum tube for the brake booster, and on there was an earthing point. So when you took out your 1G-FE from your IS200 or your 2JZ from your IS300, you saw there was an earth strap from this side of the engine that went to the firewall, okay? Now then, I would put that back. So you can have from the cylinder head here, and you can use either the M6 or the M8 hole there, and you can run that from there to the firewall. That'll give you your second earth. Because remember, the whole harness is earthing only through the cylinder heads. Now, it's not so bad in the 3UZ and 1UZ VVT-i because they use, obviously, MLS head gaskets. So there is quite a good connection between the heads and the blocks. But it always doesn't hurt with a Toyota to do that. And the other one that you can put back on is there is a ground strap that went from your original gearbox to the chassis leg underneath here. So attach that one, and attach your main one to the block, and you should be good to go. Okay, so that's everything you guys need to connect on these engines when they get into your vehicle. Other than that, as long as you do all of that, it'll then start and run, no problems. Right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get everything ready. We're gonna pop back and let's get on to that test. Right guys, so we're back for the testing of the harness now, and as per usual, it's gonna be made up of two sections, one with the ignition on and one with the engine running. So first thing we'll do, we'll go through all the tests that we are going to carry out, a little bit of explanation of what's going to happen, and we'll jump straight into the testing. So first section with the ignition on, nice and simple. First one is going to be the ambient temperature or the outside temperature. So basically all we're looking for is to move over here to the climate controls, and we should see our outside temperature displayed over there. That's all we want to see. Now remember, this is a 3UZ and he's using the standard ECU, so we have actually connected the outside temperature sensor to his ECU. So that will give an accurate reading. It will actually be measuring the outside temperature. Once we've done that, we're going to come back to the cluster and we are going to look for the check engine light, the charge light, and the oil pressure light. So that's check engine light, oil light should be down there, and charge light should be over there. So I want to make sure they all illuminate when you put the ignition on. Then we're going to test the reverse switch. So all I'm going to basically do, you can see a wire already hanging out there. I'm just going to bridge those two terminals together. And all I'm basically looking for is the beeping noise that comes from the cluster in the IS200. That tells me that from the connector all the way to the inside of the vehicle, reverse switch is connected correctly. And when you put your gearbox in reverse, as long as the switch closes, your reverse lights will come on and work correctly. Right, speedo you'll see I've labeled as not applicable in this case because obviously it's using a BMW gearbox. So in that case, we are going to be using no speedo on the actual gearbox itself. So I've got nothing to test like I normally would. I think I use my little device like you see in there. I normally force feed a signal down the speed sensor plug, but obviously I can't do that in this case because there is no speed sensor plug. And obviously he's going to be using his ABS to control his speed for his cluster. So that's not applicable on that one. Next, we're going to go to the OBD2 test. It's basically what I'm doing is I'm making sure that the OBD2 machine connects to the car. Now, this is connected directly to the OBD2 port that's actually inside the vehicle. Nothing fancy there, nothing out of the ordinary. You're going to plug into the exact same port at how you used to do diagnostics for your 1G-FE. So nothing changes there at all. Then we're going to do the AC clutch and the AC request. So basically what I'm going to do is I've hooked up the AC magnetic clutch relay activation, which comes from the engine ECU. So I'm going to use my OBD2 machine to test that, and we should hear the relay click. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over there and press the AC button inside the car to make sure that the multiplex communication from the climate controls is reaching the ECU. It sees it and it accepts that it's turning on and off. So we should see that live data in there. It'll say AC request off. I press the button, it'll go on. I press the button again, it'll go off. That's basically what we're looking for there. Okay, lastly, we've got the brake switch. So remember in the beginning I told you about the relay that's over there. So all I'm going to basically do is provide the brake switch wire with 12 volts. You're going to hear the relay click. We're going to come back and look here, and you should see stop light switch go from off to on. That's all we're looking for over there. Okay, so that's all the testing with the ignition on, and then we'll move on to the engine running. And the first one we want to do is the starter circuit. So basically what I mean is, because it's a plug and play, I want to make sure that the moment I insert the key into the ignition, turn the ignition on and turn it to start, that the engine starts. So I'm making sure that all the wiring is correct inside the vehicle, and that's exactly what should happen when it gets to you and you plug everything in. Then we're going to test the ACIS. So what we're going to be looking for with the test is that this little valve here should go down like that. And it happens a couple of seconds after you start. So that's how you can always tell whether your ACIS system is working, whether that valve goes down. Remember, we spoke earlier about testing it by providing 12 volts and ground to those wires. Hopefully you have done that and you've made sure that that vacuum solenoid valve is working, and it's not working. And when you put everything together and you go to start it and that doesn't go down, and you got to take the whole thing apart again to obviously change that vacuum solenoid valve. Okay. Next up is going to be drive-by-wire test. Basically, all I'm going to do is be pressing the pedal. That's effectively all I'm going to do, because remember, it's a full drive-by-wire system. If I touch that pedal and the engine revs, I'm happy and I know everything is working as it should. We're then going to pop back over to our machine here, and we're going to use it to test the oil control valves. Now, what my little intelligent tester can do is it can make the cams go advanced and retard. So the engine sounds really lumpy. So as I do each bank, I do bank 1 first and bank 2, you're going to hear the engine note change. It's going to become very lumpy, and then as soon as I turn the test off again, then it is going to go back to normal. Once we've done that, I'm going to test the injectors and coils. Now, all I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pull off each injector one by one. You're going to hear the engine misfiring. Now, the reason I don't pull the coils off is because with the 3UZ, what happens is if the coil is disconnected and the ECU detects via the ignition feedback signal that the coil is not firing, it actually shuts the injector down on that particular cylinder. Really nice system, obviously, so you're not injecting fuel into a cylinder that's not sparking. But obviously, if I was to remove all the coils one by one, I'd eventually end up with an engine that's only running on one cylinder. So, not ideal. So I'm just going to remove the injectors one by one. You'll hear it misfire. I'll plug it back in again, and it'll idle smoothly again. That'll tell me that all the cylinders are firing exactly as I expected to. Both the spark and the injectors are working. Next up is going to be the tacho. So all we're effectively looking for is a tacho signal. We want to make sure that that needle is going up, that it's accurate. So we'll have the actual engine speed on here to be able to see how accurate that is in relation to that. And you probably give it a little rev just to make sure that you can actually see the needles going up and down, okay? Then the coolant temp. So the coolant temp, because that information is transmitted via MPX, we obviously want to see that this coolant temperature is gone up, because that's one of the things that doesn't work when you put a 3UZ ECU into an IS200. Some of the stuff does work as standard, but things like the coolant temperatures don't work, so we want to make sure that that is working 100% and that we're actually seeing that needle go up, okay? And then lastly is diagnostics. So in this particular case, because we've remapped the ECU, we should see absolutely 0 codes on here, even though we've got no automatic gearbox. We've remapped out the whole automatic gearbox. It's not going to be in limp mode for it missing. We've also mapped out the secondary O2 sensors, the ones that go after the catalytic converters. So we're not going to have any codes on this ECU at all, and that's what we're looking for. I'll also go through some other things that you can do with the diagnostics mode. But yeah, so we'll get to that when that comes to the end there. So, right, let's jump into the testing with the ignition on. Okay, so I don't know what's making the paper so bright there. Let's start with that. So the first thing we want to do is obviously take our key, insert into the ignition barrel, and turn the ignition on. All right. Now that we've done that, let's have a look over here, and you can see straight away there it is 18 degrees. So we are getting outside temperature, and remember that is sensed, so obviously it will go up and down as the temperature increases or decreases. Right. So as I said, we're going to move over to the cluster now, making sure we've got our check engine light showing, our oil light showing, and our battery light showing. So super happy with that. Obviously, when we come to start it, you're actually going to see all of those lights go off. That's good. That's exactly what we want to see. Okay. Right, so let's move over and let's go over and do the reverse switch. Okay, so I'm just going to scoot around here. And again, all I'm basically doing is I'm just bridging it with this wire, and that's exactly what your reverse switch would do inside the vehicle. So as soon as I bridge that, you can hear that beeping noise. So that tells me that everything is fantastic. And that's the reason I tested at the connector and actually at the terminals. So that also tells me that the crimps and everything in the terminals are good and that there's no loose connections there whatsoever. Okay. Right, so that's the reverse. And again, we're not testing the speedo because we don't have that ability to do that. So let's go over to our OBD2 machine and let's make sure that everything is connecting as it should do. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and show you that it is actually picking up as a GS430. Now, unfortunately, this machine is incredibly slow to load, so I'm not going to make you sit through that whole process. But there you go, you can see GS430, and that is exactly what we want to see because that's the ECU that's in there currently. Okay, so now we're going to be doing the other tests like the AC clutch, AC request, and the brake switch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the data list to see live data. You're obviously going to see a bunch of information on there, and it should populate already. So yeah, we've got coolant temp, we've got intake air temp, throttle position, etc. there. So what I want to do now is I want to create a new custom list so we narrow down the information that we actually want and we're not left with a bunch of stuff we don't actually need. So as I said, it's going to be AC request, AC clutch, and obviously, well, in this case, it's just going to be AC request and the stop light switch. So let's quickly find AC request, AC signal, same thing, and let's get stop light switch. All right, so we'll limit the amount of data down because this is an old system. It uses K-line and it is incredibly slow the more data you try to pull off of it over there. So again, we can see our coolant temperature on there, which is going to be helpful when we're looking at the coolant temperature as it comes up over there. So let's start with what we want to do next, which is the AC clutch. Now that's going to be an actual active test that I'm going to carry out on here. So I'm going to go into active test. We're going to go into AC magnetic clutch relay. And now I'm going to turn that relay on. So I'm going to keep quiet now. Now hopefully you can hear that, but I'm going to move the camera over there because there's a little relay box by the ECU box that has the AC clutch relay in. Fantastic. Okay, brilliant. So that is the AC clutch. Okay, so that's telling me that the ECU is perfectly capable of turning on the AC clutch because it's turning on the AC magnetic clutch relay. Okay, so next up is we want AC request. So at the moment you can see here, our AC signal is off. I'm going to move over here and I'm going to turn the AC button on. And as I come back over here, you're going to see there it is now showing AC signals on. So I'm super happy now. I know that when you press the AC button inside the car, that the ECU knows that that has been done. And then obviously it can then turn the AC on when it needs to. So remember guys, it does need to be plumbed in correctly. It does need to have the pressure switches. It does need to be gassed up. And that is all fine. As long as everything is connected, it will work just fine. The pressure switch is going to the GS430 ECU, so it does know when the pressure is okay or not. So it will not work if the pressure is not okay. All right. Lastly, let's go over and look at that brake switch now. So again, all I'm basically going to do is you can see here, my stoplight switch is currently off. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to go feed the brake light switch wire that would normally come from the brake pedal, which in my case is obviously missing because I have half a car. Let me just do that again. So you can actually hear the relay clicking over there. Right, so let's just put that in. So now I'm supplying 12 volts on what will be the brake light switch wire. And as you can see here, the stop light switch has moved to on. Okay, so again, there are two signals. So the ECU knows when the brakes are both pressed and not pressed. That live data, for some weird reason, does not appear on any of the diagnostic things that I can do. But obviously, I can make sure that that does work. And as you can see, their stop light switch has now gone to off. So I'm happy, the ECU is happy. It's going to know when the brakes are pressed and not pressed. And it's going to mimic that 4-wire switch that you'd normally have on the GS430 or even the IS200 auto or IS300, which is auto as well. Except for your US guys, they got a manual version. Lucky. Right, so that is all the testing with the ignition on. Now, I need about 47 degrees, so you can see the coolant temperature is just ever so slightly off the needle. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to start the car up. I'm going to let it run for a little bit, not too long, just to get it where you can see a decent amount of the needle has moved above the empty on the coolant, or the lowest on the coolant. And then we'll come back and we'll do all the testing with the engine running. So bear with me a second. I'll see you now. Right guys, so I've let it run for a little bit, so I've got a bit more coolant temperature in there. Not a lot, I just want it to be a little bit more away from the low needle. And obviously when I'm running the engine now and doing the test, you're going to see that is actually going to rise up, so we know that that's working correctly. So quick recap of what we're going to be doing. Starter circuit, just simply, as long as I turn the key and the engine starts, that's what I'm looking for, so it tells me all the wiring is correct. ACIS, we're going to move over to here, make sure that this goes down when the engine is started and running. Drive-by-wire test, we're going to give it a quick rev with the pedal, make sure that's working 100%. Oil control valve VVT-i test, basically I'm going to use the machine here to test oil control valve 1, or bank 1, which is over there, and bank 2, which is over here. You're going to hear the engine go lumpy when I do that. Then I'm going to go around and pull out all the injectors one by one, so you can hear the engine misfiring, and then not misfiring when I put them back in again, showing that all the cylinders are firing as they should. Then we're going to pop back and we're going to look at the tacho, make sure that's pretty accurate compared to the live data that we have on our machine over here. And then we'll look at the coolant temperature. Basically what we're going to be looking for is the fact that it's actually risen up a little bit from where it was originally when we started the car. And then lastly, we're going to go through the diagnostic stuff as well. Okay, so let's do that. And like I said, nice and simple. All it is getting in, putting your key in and starting her up. Super nice and simple. Okay. So, got some coolant temperature there. Let's see where it goes up to. So, next up after starter circuit is ACIS. So you can see that's gone down. Next up is drive-by-wire test. Happy days. Then we're going to do the oil control valve tests. So let's go into active test. VVT-i control bank 1. Bank 2. Right, so that's oil control valve, and let's go ahead and do injectors and coils next. So let me just quickly get rid of that one. Right, so let's start here now. We're going to start over here with number 8. Go ahead and do number 6. Let's go and do number 4. And let's do number 2. Hop over to the other side now. Let's do number 7. Number 5. Number 3. And number 1. Right, fantastic. Okay, so injectors and coils. Let's look at our tacho. It's like just below 1,000 RPM. You see it's about 900. So it's pretty accurate for that one over there. And let's just give it a bit of a rev. Super happy with that. And let's look at our coolant temp. So you can see that has actually gone up when we originally started the engine. So that's absolutely perfect, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kill the fuel to get the engine to die without turning the ignition off. Bear with me a second. Fantastic, okay. Yeah, so just wanted to kill the engine and keep the ignition on so we can go through the diagnostics section now. So, if I go off of here and I go onto DTCs or diagnostic trouble codes, and you're going to see we've got absolutely 0 codes. Even though we have no secondary oxygen sensors, even though we have no automatic gearbox, because of the remap, that is all gone. So you should have absolutely 0 codes. And you would have seen on the cluster that my check engine light went out, my battery light went out, my oil light went out. So with this setup you have here, if your check engine light comes on, there is definitely a problem. You do need to get it looked at, and would start by doing diagnostics, which brings me on to my very last section over here. Now then, with these European 3UZ ECUs, you cannot do the old system where you bridge 2 terminals in the OBD2 port, which causes the check engine light to flash. Unfortunately, it's only the Japanese 3UZ ones that you can still do that old way of doing it, okay? So, you are limited to using a proper OBD2 diagnostics tool, okay? Doesn't necessarily have to be this one, the intelligent tester. You can obviously use one that you would be able to use on a GS430. As long as it would work on a GS430, it would work in this particular case, all right? You're gonna plug it into the exact same place you did before. Nothing different, we haven't added anything in, there's no separate plug you've gotta go into, you put it into the same existing plug. And you will still be able to communicate with the ABS system, etc. on the vehicle, so you can still do diagnosis on those ones as well. That's absolutely no problem at all. Your machine, as long as it can pick up those different modules, it will pick up those modules and you will be just fine. Okay. Now then, saying that, if you do bridge those terminals, even though you can't get the check engine light flashing, you can still do the other little trick that does allow you to do, and that is to lock the timing at 10 degrees, okay? So, if you look at your engine down here, you're going to see you've got 0, 5, 10, and 15 degrees. Now, in the case of the UZ, you should only have one marking on, and I'll see if I can find it, if I've managed to stop the engine in a decent place. Yeah, I have right here. So you can see where I've actually painted it white to give me a much better view when I am checking the timing on the engine, especially with the aftermarket ECUs. So, what you can basically do is, if you bridge pin 4 and 13 on the OBD2 plug inside the car, that's going to put it into diagnostic mode. You're going to notice some things are going to happen, like the throttle body noise is going to change. Okay, so I'm just going to do that here because I have a pre-2001. This is a pre-2001 vehicle, so I have this little diagnostics port on here. If you have a 98 to 01, you'll have this diagnostic port. If you have a 01 to 05 or 02 to 05, you're going to have only the OBD2 port in there. But remember, all of them had OBD2 ports. So it's just a case of whether you had this little extra one over here. But what I want you to listen to is how the note of the throttle changes when I put it into diagnostics mode. So just give me a second. All right. Not so easy single-handedly when it's not playing ball. Okay, all right. So you probably couldn't pick that up on there, but I've technically now put it in diagnostic mode. You can actually see it's flashing snow on there because it's obviously all the other systems that are at play. When you put it in diagnostic mode, it's not just that, it's the ABS system, etc. as well, okay? So when you do that and you bridge those two together, what you're gonna do is you're gonna lock the timing at 10 degrees. Now I do have a video to show you how to check the timing. I don't think it's on a standard ECU. I will double check that, but again, there'll be loads of links down at the bottom with loads of useful videos for you guys. But what you can do is when you bridge those two terminals like I have done there, what you can then do is, depending on your timing light, you can either have ones that work around the wires. Mine works around the wires, so I put my clamp around the wires. I'll then start the engine, and then I should see that I'm seeing 10 degrees of timing, okay? So it's just a way of checking the timing before you actually start pulling the covers off and physically checking it. So if you do have an inkling that something is not quite right, that's a nice, quick, easy test that you can do, provided you've got a timing light. And that would then tell you if the timing is correct, okay? If it's off, then you can start pulling the covers off and having a look and making sure that the timing marks do line up, okay? So that's a nice, like I said, it's just a nice, quick, easy way to do it. But brings me on to my last point in relation to that is, do not leave that wire connected, because if you do, as I said, you're going to lock the timing at 10 degrees, and if you lock the timing at 10 degrees, you're going to have almost no power. So it's going to be an absolutely terrible car to drive. It is going to be so slow, it's going to lack so much power, and it's not going to be fun. So do remember, if you are doing that, do the test, check the timing, and then pull that out, okay? So that you make 100% sure that you're not driving around with 10 degrees of timing, which is really, really bad, okay? Right, so that is this harness complete now. We've been through all the testing, we've been through the layout. I'm super happy with all of it. Hopefully the customer Jack can get this in his vehicle, get it all plugged in, and like I said, it is completely plug and play apart from the few big thick wires you've got to add on, like the starter motor, the alternator, and the earths. But other than that, you're just gonna plug everything in. You're gonna plumb your fuel up, get your coolant lines in, and get this thing started as easily as I have right here in front of you guys now. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. If there's something that you want me to do that you had a particular question on, please feel free to ask, and the next time I have the particular harness or whatever system in and I can do a video on, I will do it for you guys. So again, I don't know what you don't know. I really like doing those little informative videos to explain things to you guys in detail. Obviously it helps me a lot because I can refer back to them. You obviously probably know my friend Calvin in New Zealand. He's got Cartoon NZ, also got an absolute plethora of really detailed videos as well. We both specialize in obviously Toyota and Lexus engines. He doesn't do much JZ, but anyway, but yeah, so we both specialize in that. We've been doing it for many, many years. So we're always happy to help you guys out where we can and explain things in detail for you guys. But the best thing that I can do is ask you guys to ask me questions. I don't know what you don't know. Please feel free, jot them down in the comments. If you guys ask me questions via either sort of email or Facebook Messenger or whatever, sometimes I will do videos based on questions that I do get asked. But yeah, please feel free, guys. And if you enjoyed the video, obviously like and subscribe. We've got loads more coming. We obviously do have a harness. We do a video for every single harness we do for a customer to help them install them and understand exactly what's going on. But thanks for watching, guys, if you stuck through to the end, and wait for the photos of what it looks like all complete on the bench with all the proper way the ECU box looks. But anyway, Jack, let's get this off and get this to you so you can get your car running. And everyone else, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life. I never miss, that's fact, taking big swings, put your hand to the bat, put me in the ring, you'll go out in a bag, cause I sing what I mean and I bring it to the mad light. Ain't got time to kill, I got time to feel, I took the red pill, I know life's short so I wanna live real, but how's it supposed to